BS-Free Witchcraft is a production of the Nerd and Tie Podcast Network. Nerd and Tie produces podcasts ranging from actual play to true crime, and you can find more at nerdandtie.com or join our Discord by going to nerdandtie.com/Discord. Welcome to BS-Free Witchcraft, your monthly guide to the modern witchcraft movement. Minus a lot of the usual, well, bullshit. I'm your host, Trey Dorn. It is March of 2026, and it is spring. Yes, spring is here. Spring is here. Life is Skittles, and life is beer, and it really is properly spring for everybody listening to this, watching this, because if you're watching it when it comes out and you're in the Northern Hemisphere, if you're watching this in the future or listening to this in the future, I have no idea what time or season or where you are. But right now, if you are in the present on day of release, either on my Patreon, where it is the equinox, or for the public, where it's been a week and a day since then, it's spring. And I hope the weather is nice and not god-awful, because I'm in Wisconsin. Things could go any way at any moment. I know when this comes out on the Patreon, it's going to be beautiful, but who knows what's going to happen the weekend of the general release. Anyways, what we're going to talk about this month is a topic that I've been kind of had in my back pocket for a while. Originally, this was supposed to be talked about way back in the first year of this show. And I think what's interesting to me, and one of the reasons why I think I really want to bring it up now and talk about it, is because my opinion has shifted significantly over the years. My concept of this topic used to be much more black and white and simple than it is now. And I think that's a really interesting thing to think about, because this month we're going to talk about gatekeeping. And I don't know if you're going to figure out where I'm going to go with this one. I hope what I say makes sense. I think you're going to come along the ride for me. I think we're going to be good. But I do think that if I had made this episode in the first year like I originally intended before it just got bumped down the list, I think it would have been a very different episode. So let's find out. But before we find out, because this is one of the episodes where I just end up talking about the topic off the cuff, I have organized thoughts, and this is literally take 8 of this episode. Before we get to that, though, I do want to, this is the standard thing where Trey talks about other things that Trey is doing, and Trey is selling on the internet, and you don't have to buy this unless you really want it. But if I don't tell you about it, you don't know that it's happening. And that is the first volume of the webcomic that I write, and that's drawn by the talented Ethan Flanagan, Peregrine Lake. Our first print collection's coming out, and that is titled Welcome to Peregrine Lake Chapter 1. It's the first volume. It is available for pre-order and will be out for everybody on May 1st. It's neat. It's a comic. It's probably out of focus on camera. The art, though, is great. The story is fun. And you can read that. If you want to read the comic itself, you can just read that on the web for free. If you'd like a print collection, it's out there. It will be out there on May 1st. And you can pre-order right now if you want it. Also, again, my novels are still out there. Buried Memories came out last December. I am steadfastly working on book 5 right now, and all that stuff will be in the show notes, and I won't bring it up again until the end, maybe, so you don't have to hear me keep pitching about my stupid stuff. Let's talk about gatekeeping. When we call someone a gatekeeper, and we talk about gatekeeping, we usually say it in a pejorative way, where it is, we conjure the image of that asshole who corners you at a party seeing you wearing a band t-shirt and is like, name 5 songs. That guy. We think of the guy from the local comic shop who sees you wearing a Green Lantern shirt and asks you to name 3 Green Lanterns who aren't Hal Jordan. That guy. That guy. And in those contexts, in fandom contexts, which I come from a lot, right? For those of you who don't know my background, I've been involved in organized fandom longer, about the same amount of time I've been involved in witchcraft. And I have met all sorts of people in those environments. And fandom should be an open environment. It should be a welcoming environment, because fandom is something that is literally created by people to be shared and loved. The creators of that media, of those stories, want more people to read them, to watch them, to enjoy them. Music, TV shows, comics, movies, these are meant for everyone. Nerdy media is intended for everyone. And so when we talk about gatekeepers in that context, which is where a lot of it originally came, like, gatekeepers in that context are almost always a negative, right? We use that as almost a universal pejorative in that atmosphere. So me coming from my geeky, nerdy background, in 2018, when we were doing the show, when I started the show and I came up with this topic as a thing I wanted to talk about, I was pretty certain this was just going to be some negative rant about gatekeepers. Like, early on in the show's history, I had a person come onto my Discord. And this is so long ago, this person's not even currently active in our Discord. But they were complaining about a negative experience they had on another server, where they had gone to this server that was talking about, like, being for, like, experienced witches, intermediate witches, things like that. And someone asked them a terminology question. Now the person who was being asked, this person who had this negative experience, had been a practicing witch for like 5 years. And they weren't saying they were super experienced. They were calling themselves intermediate. And they were effectively asked a set of questions to whether or not they would be kicked off the server. And one of them was effectively, they're asking a question to them, like, what would you call a kind of spell where you use something similar, like an item that is similar to influence another item, right? And effectively, the answer they were looking for was sympathetic magic. And while the person who was being asked this question was familiar with a lot of different kind of magical stuff, and even the techniques described in the question were not unfamiliar, they just didn't know the term sympathetic magic. And they got kicked from the server for not knowing a vocabulary word. And that seemed like for a server that was not, the person was not trying to join as an expert. They were trying to join as, like, an intermediate, like, level of experience, and they met all the other criteria, and they had a lot of experience in a lot of these other things, but because they didn't know a vocabulary word, this person decided they weren't a serious witch. They decided that it was a term that every serious witch would know. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been a witch for over 25 years. We're nearing 30 years. It's been a while. And over 25 years, I'm going to keep saying until I hit that 30 years. It's creeping up, though. Next year, I got to start saying 30 years. And you know what? If someone had asked me on the spot that question, and I guess this is the point where I would have been a witch for 20 something, for over 20 years when I encountered this person. If I had been asked that question on the spot, I might not come up with sympathetic magic as the answer. Even though, like, I'm familiar with the concept, and if someone says the word to me, I know it, but if something sits outside of the paradigm that I'm functioning in directly, I might not immediately come up with the word. Because my human brain is a weird place to live, as are probably many of yours, if you are part of the audience of this show. And that person was kicked out of that witchcraft. To be fair, I don't think that's a community I would want to be a part of, because, like, elitist douchiness is unappealing to me. But that form of gatekeeping just pissed me off. And stories like that are what I had in mind when I first thought about doing a gatekeeping episode, right? That you get these communities of witches who are in theory welcoming, but they're the guy who asks you to name 5 songs. Like, if you don't know the specific kind of stuff that guy's doing, they deem you not a witch. And we say terms like, we say phrases like, there's no wrong way to witch, because witchcraft is an umbrella term, if anything else, right? It's the definition of witchcraft that we have used on this show, that I use on this show and function under, is just, and we've said it before, just the basic idea that a witch is anyone who practices a system of magic that can be described as witchcraft and is described by the practitioner as witchcraft and calls themselves a witch. That's it, because it is, again, it is a self-selected title. We never call anyone a witch who doesn't choose the title witch for obvious historical reasons. And, you know, the actual kind of magic they do can vary, though. It just has to be a magical system that the practitioner refers to as witch. It's got to be magic, but just doing some kind of magic, calling yourself a witch, there is no way to gatekeep that. There is no way to gatekeep that. And so when people declare someone not a witch, that is a really negative form of gatekeeping. Even if you're doing it to a bad person. Because there are people, and there are people out there who are politically terrible. TikTok freaked out when they found out about MAGA witches, but any of us who have operated in suburbs before know exactly who these people are. These right-wing assholes who practice some sort of witchcraft. They exist. There are right-wing witches. They are less, well, they're common in certain communities. Anyways, we could talk about it. But, you know, straight white upper class people can be awful. Upper middle class people especially. But they exist. And there's this thing where, like, I've seen people on TikTok going like, oh, they're not really witches. And I'm like, why aren't they witches? Tell me. Because you're bringing a lot of your own definitions about what makes someone a witch, when the only definition of witch that really matters is a person practicing some kind of magic. Yeah, no, the annoying person with their crystals, they're still doing something, and they call themselves a witch. Still a witch. They're an asshole, and I wouldn't let them in my house, but we don't get to kick them out of the club. We do get to kick them out of the club, though. See, it is the angle that all gatekeeping was bad. That was the black and white view that I had when I started. And I think a lot of us, you know, it's really easy to fall into black and white views. But there is nuance and shades of gray. And I think a really obvious thing is that while we cannot declare that this person is not a witch, right? This right-wing hate monger can be a witch. We can decide to not allow them into our community. We can keep that gate. We can't gatekeep the word witch, but we can gatekeep whether or not we let them sit at the table with us. When we build our communities and we create the environments that we want to live in and be in, those decisions that we make. And that is a gate we are keeping. While we cannot gatekeep the word witch, and it would be wrong to gatekeep the word witch, and to deny these people are witches is to maybe even ignore our own culpability, we can gatekeep the communities and spaces that we maintain and create. If you run a witchcraft shop, you can choose to not deal with these people, to not allow them to shop with you. If you are running a community group, you can just fucking kick them out. If you're running a Facebook group, you can kick them out. If you are running a Discord, you can kick them out. I would say it is wrong to kick someone out of a group because they didn't know an exact term you wanted, but it's perfectly fine to kick them out if they're a red hat. If you are MAGA or MAHA or any of that ridiculous shit and you have made it this far into a BS-free Witchcraft episode, please fuck off and leave. Never return. Delete this from your phone if you've downloaded the episode. Just get the fuck out of here. This show has been gatekept against you. Anyways. So, like, those are extremes, though, that are really easy, right? Like, we know that we should not gatekeep the word witch, but we should gatekeep our communities and spaces against bigots. Right? Right? But that still leaves us in a really, like, extreme position. There is so much gray area in between. Because what I think is funny is that there are some really important places that even the people who say we shouldn't be gatekeepers agree that we should be gatekeeping. And that these conflicting messages often lead to fucking problems. And that comes down to things like closed practices or closed communities, depending on how you want to, what word you want to use. Because there are gates on the doors for so much stuff. I once had somebody accuse me of gatekeeping the word Wicca because I demanded that for something to be considered a Wiccan. I'm an eclectic Wiccan, right? Obviously, I fall into a pretty broad category of what's called Wicca. But and I came up in the 90s where everything and its dog was being labeled Wicca. But I have always been a firm believer that for something to be Wiccan, whether, you know, because obviously British traditional Wicca is really easy to define because that's, you know, the original flavor. Like, it's hard to define. If the Gardnerians get to be Wiccans, and I guess Alexandrians. Actually, that sounds real mean. I've met perfectly nice Alexandrians. It's just that Alexander's was a piece of work. So, like, you know, but if you are in a coven that is practicing Alexandrian Wiccan, I actually don't have a problem with you. I like being mean to Alexanders. Let's just be really clear. But anyways, my definition of Wicca that I've always gone with is that to be considered Wicca, first off, you must have some sort of initiation, even if it's a self-dedication, that initiatory moment. I believe you should do a year and day of study beforehand, but you do not become a Wiccan until the act of initiation, be it a self-dedication or from a group, because this is an orthopraxic religion. How it's practiced is the fundamentally important part. It's not orthodoxic, it's orthopraxic. It's primarily orthopraxic, which it means that it's defined how it's practiced, not by what the beliefs are. Like, you could believe in the concept of a god and goddess and all that stuff, but if you haven't done the action of actually dedicating, of like doing the ritual, I don't believe that you're a Wiccan. You could have the exact same religious beliefs as a Wiccan, and I don't consider you one if you haven't done the ritual. And that's such a small gate to keep. Like, there's lots of other stuff that, like, down the road of, like, you know, what do your rituals look like? What is the format of this? And we can get into that nitty gritty, but I feel like that's the most basic gate to keep about who gets to call themselves a Wiccan. Did you do an initiation of some sort? And again, I include self-initiation in there. Like, it can be you alone in your bedroom. But you gotta do the ritual. And I don't believe that something should be called Wicca unless that step has been taken. Just like you cannot be called a British traditional Wiccan, you can't be a Gardnerian unless you have been initiated by a Gardnerian coven. You have to be initiated by a Gardnerian to be a Gardnerian. You have to take their oaths and do the stuff. That is a gate that can be kept, that has to be kept for things to mean the things they mean. It's a mystery cult. Let it be a mystery cult. And that is cult in the less derogatory meaning of the word, the original more meaning of the word, not the, bite model stuff that comes along with the definition, the modern definition of the word cult that gets used for new religious movements. Let's just be really clear. It's a mystery religion. It has to be defined. Like, you're not Gardnerian if you weren't initiated as part of a Gardnerian cult. You don't get to call yourself that unless you were. You can't call yourself a Wiccan in general if you had no sort of initiation self. Otherwise, you can't call yourself a Gardnerian Wiccan if you haven't been initiated by Gardnerians. It doesn't matter if you found a Gardnerian, Book of Shadows and have constructed your rituals exactly like Gardnerians. If they have a rule, they have a line, a limit, and that is a gate that is kept. Likewise, when we talk about closed practices in other things, like, people ask me, like, is Wicca a closed practice? And no, in the sense that there are forms of Wicca that anyone can join and become, but you aren't the thing unless you cross the gate of doing the task. But also, we talk about, like, someone once accused me of gatekeeping Lilith, which is hilarious in many ways, shape, or form. If you've listened to the Lilith episode, you know that she is exclusively a figure that comes from Jewish folklore. The figure of Lilith, especially like when we talk about like that, the version of the story that has been interpreted by some Jewish people to be an empowering version of the first wife of Adam, and that first wife of Adam story comes from the alphabet of Ben Sura, which was a satirical misogynist text, but like, and I break down why the ancient Mesopotamian Lilith did not exist, and there's a whole episode on that. You can go listen to that. We're not going to talk about that, but like, people's responses to that episode, like, telling me I was gatekeeping Lilith, and I'm like, I'm not, but also that is a piece of Jewish folklore, and like, regardless of what your opinions or beliefs are, first off, like, if you're not worshiping the thing as described in the thing, why are you using the name for that thing? If you are secretly worshiping this other thing that went by a different name, you're worshiping the thing with the other name. Use that name. That's a whole other fight. But Judaism, to be Jewish, isn't about having the religious beliefs of a person who is Jewish, because first off, also a lot of Jewish people, there are a lot of Jewish atheists I've met over the years, and they're still Jewish, because part of what is being Jewish is the ritual and being part of that community, and that is a gate that needs to be kept. And actually, like, in many ways, with the number of times if you want to convert that you are told no, that gatekeeping is an important part of the ritual. It takes work, and you cannot be Jewish unless you follow it. So that is a gate that needs to be kept. I've said this before. I probably said this earlier in this episode, but again, we get people who talk about closed practice. It's bad to take from closed practices, and then we'll say gatekeeping is bad at the other hand. And literally saying you cannot take from closed practices is a form of gatekeeping. And that's why, and so we look at these moral values, right? Like, which is more important, that a gate be kept, or that we, like, take into consideration marginalized communities? And the marginalized communities are clearly the higher priority, right? Like, so gatekeeping is not the great evil. The problem, gatekeeping is a problem when it is something that is intended to be open, right? Like, if you say that you can't be a witch if you do this, this, and that. All right. If you can't be a witch if you wear the color purple on Tuesdays, because my personal tradition says that doesn't work. That's bad. Right? But it is important to gatekeep things when it is something that needs to be protected, to protect the definition of words, to say things mean things, to protect people who have been marginalized, to do a lot of that. Like, there are very clear things. Words have definitions. But the problem is we've conflated these things. The internet, we flatten everything into black and white. And we talk about, like, this is bad, this is good. But when the world has nuance, when the world is more complicated than we want it to be, it's easy to get into situations where these flat ideas conflict. So, gatekeeping in witchcraft spaces can be good. Sometimes it is important that we do it. But we make that determination on context, on nuance, and understanding what we are gatekeeping. If something has a firm definition that says you must do this to be this, we keep that gate. If it is we must do this to keep our community safe, if we want to keep out Nazis, we gatekeep the Nazis from our community. It's pretty simple. That gatekeeping is good. But you can't gatekeep a candle because I can buy it at Walgreens. But there are rituals that need to be gatekept. It is both that simple and that complicated. The lesson of this show, of this whole series, the lesson of BS-free witchcraft in general is just the simple idea that none of this is black and white. It's the simple idea that it's not that simple. And that we must embrace nuance. The nuance of everything we're doing is important. And when we ignore that, we can do real harm. The world is not black and white, and we must look at things intelligently. And maybe don't be a dick to other people. I don't know. So it's interesting, my progression of myself as I have come through this over the years, because I instinctively had the opinion that gatekeeping was wrong 7.5 years ago. I would have made a very different episode. I would have made a worse episode. But life's not as simple as we sometimes assume it's going to be when we start out on a journey. Such is life. I don't know, we're all a mess. Thank you guys so much for listening to yet another episode of this weird little show. This little half hour of me ranting alone in a room in the middle of the night in my apartment. I want to thank you guys so much. I want to especially thank people who choose to support this show on Patreon. I know times are tough. Money's tight. The world is in chaos. People's financial situations are a mess. And so the fact that so many of you have stuck by me and continue to support this show and my other creative projects, I really appreciate it. And I want to say thank you. If you do choose to donate to the Patreon, even just $1 a month gives you episodes like this a whole week early. There are some exclusive videos. I haven't made a new one in like a year. I need to get back on that. I need to get back to doing my Pagan Invasion series. I only did the first 2 episodes. I will get back to that when I'm not pulling my hair out, probably this summer. My plan is to get back to those this summer. Please hold me to it. If I don't do it and you pay for the Patreon, yell at me. But I especially want to give a shout out to the people at the $10 level. People still sticking with it. Lindsay Dosey, Claire Dennis, Pamela Stark, and Elder Gamble. Thank you guys so much for sticking through. And remember, just besides people at I've also got my ebooks up in the Patreon shop. People at the $10 level get all of my ebooks for free. People at the $5 level get ebooks a year after they come out as included in their membership, and everybody gets a copy of the super awesome Action Heroes role-playing game system, because why not? if they're at the $1 level or better. So it's a neat thing you can do if you want to do it. If not, sign up for the free tier. Sometimes there are updates on the Patreon that'll go out that don't go out other places, and so it's a way I can keep in touch with you. Even if you don't have the money to support, you can sign up on the free tier, and occasionally, once every 6 months or so, you'll get an email about something I'm doing. It's exciting. Also, I do run an anime convention. I am one of the people in charge of No Brand Con, Wisconsin's longest running anime convention. We took a few years off, and we are coming back May 1st through 3rd in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. If you ever want to meet me, that's the place to meet me. I am there. I am hanging out. We've got some great guests. Princess Weeks is going to be there. Linkara's going to be there. Tappy Toe Claws is going to be there. It's a good time. Bunch of my friends, and pretty much if you listen to other Nerd and Tie shows, pretty much everyone is going to be there. Like, whole Stormwood cast is going to be in the building, as is, a bunch of other people. Not everybody. Like, Miles will be there, but Charlie won't, because Miles lives in Wisconsin for Casual Trek. Anyways, a bunch of us will be there. You should hang out if you are in the area. It's going to be a fun con. NoBrandCon.org is where you can find information about that. Again, Peregrine Lake Chapter 1 comes out May 1st. In fact, actually, the reason why we're doing the launch date on May 1st is because Ethan and I will both be at No Brand Con, and there will be copies there that you can get signed in person if you go to that event. Other than that, I want to thank you guys for tuning in yet another month. Remember, social media plug. Got to do that, Trey. You're awake. Anyways, remember, if you can't afford to support the show monetarily, you can always share the show on social media. And if you want to follow me on social media, you can find me on Tumblr at TRAEGORN, on Blue Sky at TRAEGORN.bsky.social. You can find me on TikTok at TRAEGORN. I have this show, besides the show's YouTube channel, which you could be watching this on right now. There's a good chance some of you are. No one watches this on YouTube, but the show is on YouTube at BS3 Witchcraft. And I also have at TRAEGORN on YouTube for the rest of the stuff I post to TikTok that isn't witchcraft related. Just been cross-posting shorts on my old YouTube account. YouTube Shorts is way meaner in the comments than TikTok. And then remember, you can always find all my stuff at www.traydorn.com or bs3witchcraft.com, of course. But you're listening to the show, so you know that exists. And remember, we are part of the Nerd and Tie Podcast Network. Remember, for more podcasts like, say, Ask a Historian, hosted by E.H. Lupton, that's a great show. You should listen to it. And also, E.H. Lupton has a new book coming out in April. So, maybe look at that. Pre-order in their Wisconsin Gothic series. So, these are good books. You should read these books. Anyways, they're not by me. I'm just saying it because I'm genuinely a fan. Anyways, remember, if you want to talk to me, and the Facebook page is facebook.com/BS3Witchcraft. Don't try to find my personal Facebook page. That's where I talk to my mom. And if you do want to talk to me, if you just want to talk and chill and hang out, there are two places. One, nerdandtie.social. Our forums are very slow, quiet, sleepy forums, but if you post something there, I will see it and I will respond to you. Or you can join our Discord, and where you can find an invite at nerdandtie.com/Discord. I cannot say that without any other rhythm. It's just nerdandtie.com/discord. Anyways, that's where you can talk to me. With that, Magicians, I'm going to bring this episode to a close. Remember, the world may be in chaos and stuff kind of sucks. But there's light at the end of the tunnel. I am here for you. I'm fighting right alongside you. And dirt in our fingernails, brick in our hands. And I'll talk to you Magicians next month.